I'm Audrey McIntosh and I'm an endurance and ultra runner, and to pay the bills I am a business consultant and project manager. The background for my running is that I came to it very late in life, really, well, for a runner. I started running in my mid-30s, and the first race I did was a 10k, which was really just a fun run for charity to raise funds for my local hospital. And I did the race very badly, but in a strange way enjoyed it. Then the next year I decided to do it again, but had let the training slip in between times, so started from scratch again. Did this for several years and then thought, actually I quite like this running lark, and decided to build it into part of keeping myself fit and healthy. And then I built up to half marathon. At that stage people said to me, "You're going to do a marathon?" I said, "No, only lunatics do marathons." And funnily enough, a year later I was doing a marathon. I played around with the marathon distance for a few years, and then inevitably somebody said to me, "Are you going to do one of these ultra marathons?" No, really serious lunatics do ultra marathons. And then funnily enough I was putting my toe in the water and tried out doing an ultra marathon. And since then it's very definitely been these longer endurance races that I've done, marathons and longer. Charity is a very important part of our life. Back from being a child, I was made to be aware, or became aware, to appreciate just how lucky and well off we are. And I don't just mean material, I mean it with our health as well. I always pick a charity that means something to me, that is close to home. So for instance, the Victoria Infirmary, where Alistair, my husband, was treated for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I've raised for Macmillan because a friend who had cancer was helped by Macmillan. Currently I'm fundraising for Alzheimer's Scotland because I have an uncle who is suffering from dementia, and Alistair has had 2 aunts who he's lost to dementia. The Antarctic event was, I suppose, well, it was life-changing. I was looking for something big to celebrate my 50th birthday, but also to generate a large level of fundraising for Alzheimer's Scotland. You pull up Google and you type in adventure and endurance racing, and what should come up but the Antarctic Ice Marathon? And I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's madness. Why would you go and do that? And oh, it's hugely expensive, and I don't like camping, I don't like the cold. No, it's not the event for me, but something just kept drawing me back to it again and again. The qualification was, can you run a marathon? Well, yeah, I've done quite a few. Right, you're in. I did remarkably well in the races, far better than I thought. I went out there just to finish, and that was it. You know, as long as I got over that finish line, I didn't care where I was. But I actually coped with the races and the conditions very well. And so found myself finishing 4th lady, 16th overall. The 100k, being so close, just 28 hours after the marathon, I knew my energy levels wouldn't be fully replenished. But you know, there was nowhere else to go, so I just knew I had to finish it. There was so much support for me back home, and so much money had been donated towards charity that I absolutely had to finish it. And I did, and I came in 3rd overall. The Volcano Marathon actually is organised by the same person who organised the Antarctic marathons. It's in the Atacama Desert and it's at altitude, so I'm going to be plus 30 degrees as opposed to minus 30 degrees on this one, and the altitude at 14,500 feet means I'm going to have about half the level of oxygen I've got here at sea level. I managed to get some training sessions with the Life Sciences Department at Glasgow University. I think I've done 12 sessions now, working with different levels of oxygen, so 11% through to 13%. I've walked in it, cycled, run and walked on the flat, put some incline on the treadmill, and got a really good judge, I think, of how my body might respond. to the altitude. We can't simulate the thinness of the air, but we can certainly simulate the oxygen. And from the readings and statistics that the sports scientist has gathered, I've got a sort of pace, a sort of lower and upper pace that I can work at, and also some heart rate settings as well. So I know that if I push my heart rate beyond a certain level, I'll be pushing too hard and won't be able to go the distance. That has to be the toughest, most grueling race I have ever done. It was that combination of the heat, there was wind, there were sections where there was no clear path and you just had to pick your way through stones and sand and prickly bushes, along with the altitude itself. I got through the first half ahead of schedule, reached the halfway mark in just under 3 hours, was going strong, and then 5 kilometres further on, altitude sickness kicked in. At that stage, legs are incredibly heavy because the lactic burn with the lack of oxygen kicks in a lot sooner than it normally would in a marathon. Set out up another 2 kilometres of climb before gradually descending, then having to work my way through a very rough canyon and the final 3/4 of a mile uphill, steep uphill to the finish line. So I eventually staggered in 7 hours, 16 minutes, wasn't in great shape, collapsed just as I finished the finish line, but a few minutes of oxygen and I was fine. I had no idea how I'd placed in the event, and it wasn't actually until the next morning when they published the race results that I learned that I'd come in 3rd lady overall, which was, it was good. It got a nice feeling, and I didn't feel quite so bad about the time after that. But yeah, that was definitely the hardest thing I've done to date. I've set my target for next year, so I've got 3 key events: the North Pole Marathon, the West Highland Way and the Glenmore 24-hour trail race. The big one is the North Pole. In terms of distance, again, standard marathon, but again in a very extreme environment. We're on ice floes, so the course that you're going to run on is constantly shifting and moving up and down. You can hear the ice cracking, and temperatures can go down to probably about -40. Certainly this year they were running in -40 degrees. Between the Antarctic races, the North Pole and the Volcano Marathon, I will hopefully have achieved 4 of the hardest events there are worldwide, certainly in extreme and endurance running. It seems daft to have the South Pole and not have the North Pole. Hopefully I'll get some backing. It's a very expensive trip, mainly because of the logistics of having to get you out there, and I'm hoping to be able to pick up some sponsorship for this event. With that, I can then reach and exceed my target for Alzheimer's Scotland, because I'd set the target of raising £20,000. I'm on 14,000 just now. So, you know, if I get a nice high profile event and a good run at it, hopefully I can then top out my fundraising with Alzheimer's Scotland, and that will contribute a long way to setting up a new resource centre within Glasgow. A lot of people were saying to me how inspiring I was, which I found quite unusual and a little hard to understand, but people seem to be quite interested to hear why I do things and what motivates me and what keeps me going. And I started to I've pulled together a talk that I do mainly with young people. Actually, I've spoken at a couple of schools and then an event with Education Scotland. So I talk about my experience in Antarctica and how I prepared for that, and how I had to learn to do different things and not be frightened of the challenge, and cope with that challenge and find it exciting as well, and not to be scared of it. I want to start inspiring other women to get fit, to take on challenges, and to know that actually if they have a dream and they have the determination, they can actually drive through and achieve that.